What if the retirement plan you're confident about only works on paper? You've run the numbers, you've used the calculators. The projections look fine, maybe even comfortable. But here's the question most retirement plans ever ask. What happens if those numbers change right before you retire? Not by a catastrophic amount, just enough. Today, we're running a retirement stress test, not a panic exercise, a structural one. Because the retirement plans that survive uncertainty aren't the ones built for perfect conditions. They're the ones built to flex when conditions aren't. The recognition mirror. Maybe this is where you are right now. Net worth somewhere between $700,000 and $1 million. Still working, but counting. You've got a number in mind. The number that means you're done. And on paper, it looks like you're close. The math supports it. The projections say yes, your plan works, as long as nothing goes wrong. And that phrase, as long as nothing goes wrong, is doing a lot of work in most retirement timelines. And the question isn't whether something will go wrong. The question is whether your plan can handle it when something does. How fragile is your retirement timeline, really? If a 20% drop happened tomorrow, would you still hand in your notice? Or would you be quietly extending your timeline by 3 years, telling yourself it's fine? The belief disruption. There's a belief most pre-retirees carry without examining it. If the math says I can retire, I'm safe. It's an understandable belief, and it's structurally incomplete. Most retirement models are built on historical averages, decent returns, moderate inflation. Spending that follows a predictable line. In that environment, the math works cleanly. But retirement risk doesn't come from bad averages. It comes from bad timing. Your retirement success isn't determined by the 30 years of your retirement. It's disproportionately shaped by the first 5. This is what financial planners call the retirement red zone. Roughly the 5 years before and 5 years after you stop working. During your accumulation years, a market crash is manageable. You're still earning. You can wait. But the moment you flip from accumulation to distribution, the math changes in a way most spreadsheets don't capture. And a crash in the red zone isn't just a temporary dip. It can be a permanent structural failure. Not because of anything you did wrong, but because of when it happened. And even then, a simple market crash isn't the most dangerous scenario. There's something more subtle that quietly breaks retirement plans. We'll get to it. The retirement stress test framework. There are 3 categories of stress that structurally break retirement plans. Not hypothetically, structurally. Let's run through each. Shock 1, the pre-retirement drop. Your portfolio is at $950,000. A standard market correction pulls it to $720,000. You were planning to withdraw $40,000 annually, a 4.2% withdrawal rate on $950,000. On $720,000, that same $40,000 becomes a 5.6% withdrawal rate. The number that felt safe no longer is, and you haven't changed a single thing about your lifestyle. Shock 2, the expense surge. Most people underestimate retirement spending by 15 to 20%. Healthcare, taxes, the simple reality of having 16 hours of unstructured time every day. If your required withdrawal jumps from $40,000 to $52,000 in year 2, does the math still hold? For most plans built around a single fixed number, it doesn't. Shock 3, the longevity extension. What if you don't need your money for 30 years? What if you need it for 40 or 45? With modern medicine, outliving your money is no longer a trope. It's a statistical scenario worth planning around. A retirement model built for 25 years is a structurally different plan than one built for 35. Each of these shocks, in isolation, is manageable. The stress test gets harder when 2 or 3 arrive together, which, historically, they often do. But the most dangerous scenario still hasn't been named. And it's not a dramatic market collapse or a medical crisis. It's something quieter, the real-world application. Let's make this concrete. A couple, both 60, retiring with a $1 million portfolio. A planned withdrawal of $40,000 per year combined with $24,000 in Social Security income. Total annual income target, $64,000. On paper, this works comfortably. Now run the stress test. The market drops 22% in year 1 of retirement. Portfolio moves from $1 million to $780,000. That $40,000 withdrawal is now a 5.1% rate. Manageable, but the margin has narrowed. Then add mild expense creep. Healthcare and a home repair run $6,000 over budget. And you hold those conditions for 2 years and project forward 30 years. The plan that worked under average conditions now has a structural gap. Not because of bad decisions, because of timing and what compounding does when it's working against you instead of for you. Here's what changes outcomes. Flexibility. The couples who adapt early, reduce spending by $5,000, pick up part-time income for a couple of years, often stabilize the trajectory significantly. The ones who don't aren't usually reckless. They just assumed the plan was fixed. Retirement resilience isn't about having more. It's about having range, sequence of returns risk. This is the structural risk that ends more retirements than any single bad investment. Sequence of returns risk is the reality that the order in which you receive your returns matters more than the average of those returns. And it's the reason 2 people can retire with identical savings, identical spending habits, and end up in completely different places. Not because of what they did, but because of when the market moved. Here's the mechanism. Retiree A and retiree B both earn an average of 7% annually over 20 years. Identical average, identical starting balance, identical withdrawals, but retiree A gets the bad years early. Retiree B gets them late. After 20 years, retiree A's portfolio is depleted. Retiree B's is intact. Same math, different sequence, completely different lives. But when you withdraw from a declining portfolio, you're locking in losses. Every dollar pulled out in a down market is a dollar that can't recover. You're selling shares at the bottom to fund your life, leaving fewer shares behind to participate in the eventual rebound. The market recovers. Your portfolio doesn't, because the shares that would have driven the recovery were already spent. This is why the timing of your retirement is the most critical variable you can't control. You can control your savings rate, your asset allocation, your spending discipline, but you cannot control what the market does in the year you hand in your notice. If you're ignoring sequence risk, you're not planning around the real shape of retirement. You're assuming the average shows up on schedule. The structural shift: stop asking, what number lets me retire? Start asking, what structure makes my retirement resilient? These are different questions, and they lead to different plans. A number gives you a finish line. A structure gives you a system, and a system is what you actually need, because retirement doesn't end at the starting gate. It runs for decades through conditions no spreadsheet can predict. Structural resilience has 4 components. The first is withdrawal flexibility, the ability to reduce spending by 10 to 15% in a bad market year without breaking the plan. This single variable changes long-term outcomes more than most people realize. And it's not about deprivation. It's about having range built into your lifestyle before you need it. The second is a withdrawal range instead of a fixed rate. Rather than, I need $42,000 per year, the frame becomes, I can operate between $36,000 and $46,000 depending on conditions. That band is a resilience buffer. It sounds small. Over 30 years, it's the difference between a plan that holds and one that doesn't. The third is contingency income. Part-time work, consulting, and a project that generates modest cash flow in the early years of retirement. Not as a backup plan, but as a pressure release valve specifically during the window when sequence risk is highest. 2 or 3 years of supplemental income in your early 60s can meaningfully reduce the structural pressure on a $900,000 portfolio. The fourth is lifestyle adjustability. The retirees who navigate volatility best aren't always the ones with the most money, and they're the ones who built a life that doesn't require a fixed income to feel stable. That's a design choice, not a financial one, and it starts well before retirement. When you think this way, you stop being a net worth watcher and start being a system designer. And the fear of fragility, that quiet anxiety that the plan only works if everything goes right, starts to lose its grip. Retirement is not a fixed destination you reach and then stop moving. It's a system that must adapt to uncertainty. The stress test isn't an argument for working forever. It's an argument for building a plan that can survive the real world, not just a spreadsheet. Because the real world delivers bad sequences, surprise expenses, and longer lifespans. Not to punish you, but because that's what 30-year timeframes look like. If your savings dropped tomorrow, would your plan break or would it bend? And the most successful retirees aren't the ones who timed the market perfectly. They're the ones who built structures that didn't require perfect timing, who had range in their spending, flexibility in their income, and enough composure to not make permanent decisions during temporary conditions. What would your plan look like if the average didn't show up for the first 5 years? That question is worth sitting with, because the answer shapes everything that comes after. Retirement isn't a number, it's a structure.